Han Sen observed the dead bodies that lay strewn about and frowned. The bodies of the blood-horned Shura, after being killed by the Adiraid, began to rot quickly. Even the horns on their heads decomposed, as their mangled bodies reduced to thick, bloody mush on the ground. It was a grotesque sight. What are these things? Han Sen frowned. Clearly, they weren't creatures, but neither were they humans. And if they were indeed Shura, as he initially suspected, there was something different about them. Han Sen's thoughts turned to Zero, but she was vastly different than these monsters, as well. Regardless of whether Zero was in human or Shura mode, she did not have a disfigured body akin to the creatures he had just fought. Her body cleanly represented either a human shape or a Shura shape. These things cannot be a natural creation of this world. Humans must have constructed these beings. Whoever created these and set them loose upon me obviously wants to see me dead. But who would do such a thing? Han Sen frowned again. Angel Jean seemed like the most likely candidate. Han Sen did not continue. Instead, he returned to the nearest shelter and teleported back to the Alliance. If his opponent was willing to do this to him, he was afraid of what they might do to his family. No one would dare come after him in the Alliance, especially now that he was counted as one of the Jai family. So, the first thing he did when he returned to the Alliance was try to contact his mother. He wanted to tell her not to spend much time in the shelter and remain in the Alliance for as long as she could. Or at least, wait until he arrived there to protect her. But when Han Sen called his mother, he received no answer. This made Han Sen's heart jump with worry. Han Sen called Qin Xuan and asked her to send a few members of the special squad over to protect his mother and escort her out of the shelter, if they could. The Blue Crystal shelter was near the Bukta Mountains, and Luo Sulan was out on a hunt under the protection of Wu Qinggang. Although she already had a lot of Geno points, her combat skills and prowess were still somewhat lacking. Mrs. Han, it would be best if you came with us. A leader of sorts stepped forward to speak, and as he finished his line, delivered a half smile. Who are you people, and why should I follow you? Luo Sulan asked, frightened at their sudden approach. Do not worry, we do not plan on bringing you harm. We are here to bring you reunification with your son, the middle-aged man said. What happened to Little Sin? Luo Sulan quickly asked. You will know once you come with us, the man said, with a frosted tone. I'm not going with you, Luo Sulan said, as she nibbled her lips. Why do you even bother talking to her? Just capture her already, another man coldly interjected. Okay, then, the other man then gestured with his hand, and the rest approached her. They knew all about Luo Sulan. She was a housewife who killed a few ordinary creatures to survive. She has been taken care of through the kindness of others, unable to fight for herself. They had already separated her from the assigned protector of the special squad, which meant capturing her would be an easy task to accomplish. You guys have parents. How do you think they would feel if they knew you were out here, attempting to kidnap a lone woman? Luo Sulan sighed as she spoke. Shut up. If you refuse to come with us peacefully, take one last look at that silky smooth skin of yours, before we cut it up and drag you away with us, Zhang Fang coldly told her. Just when Zhang Fang's hand was about to touch Luo Sulan, she raised her silky smooth hand and casually waved it in front of Zhang Fang's neck. Flop, he was only 2 feet away, and Zhang Fang's head was removed from his neck as if it were severed by an invisible knife. Have any of you ever felt hopeless? Luo Sulan's face was like ice. She did not look scared or afraid at all. She looked devoid of emotion, cold. Just cold. Their hearts shivered as chills ran down their spines. Blood spread all about like flowers. She quickly moved around, and with each directional turn, red syrup followed. Devil, you're the devil. Du Rajai was petrified with fear. All the elites around him, including Zhang Feng, and 2 with open gene locks, they most likely had the power to slay or capture a super creature. If they didn't possess such power, it would have been impossible for them to shake out 3 sacred blood creatures to attack and draw away Wu Qinggang. But the elites were now mercilessly slain by a woman that only had to walk 10 quick steps to sever each elite's head from their neck. Yet with the claret blood that sprayed and flowed, not a single droplet stained the woman's clothing. Luo Sulan still looked as elegant and as gentle as ever. The woman stood in front of Du Rajai, who no longer thought she was a pretty woman. She was now the devil. Don't kill me. I still have my parents, and I have a wife and kids. Du Rajai slobbered his plea for mercy after dropping down to his knees. The devil doesn't believe in tears. Luo Sulan gave Du Rajai one last, cold look. She swung her hand, and another head rose to the sky with an airborne wake of blood. The Blue Crystal team found Luo Sulan out near the mountains and quickly brought her back to the shelter. Wu Qinggang killed 1 sacred blood creature and managed to chase away the other 2 before returning himself. The Blue Crystal team believed things were not as simple as they might have initially seemed, as those sacred blood creatures should not have appeared where they were in the first place. But aside from their intrusion, nothing else happened. Luo Sulan was safe. Although it was strange, Luo Sulan's safety was all that mattered. After she returned to the shelter, she teleported to the Alliance. Near the base of the mountains, the ground seemed disrupted. The soil seemed fresh, as if something had been recently buried. "Mom, are you okay?" King Xuan had told Han Sen what had occurred at the shelter, and he found it strange as well. "I'm fine. What could have possibly happened to me?" Luo Sulan asked. "Mom, I may have offended someone in the shelter. They have tried to come at me already, but they were unsuccessful." "Little Sen, who did you offend? Will something happen?" Luo Sulan worriedly asked. "Don't worry, I can handle all this. Your son is strong now." Han Sen smiled as he spoke. "It's my fault for being unable to protect you." Luo Sulan spoke with a tone of sadness. "Mom, it was difficult enough for you to raise me. Now, I should be the one protecting you," Han Sen quickly told her. "Little Sen, do you still have your great-grandfather's relic?" Luo Sulan asked him, seemingly randomly. "Of course I do. Do not worry for that, Mom. I always carry this pendant," Han Sen said. "All right, then." A look of relief then washed over Luo Sulan. After hanging up the communicator, Luo Sulan's expression was complicated. She thought to herself, after all these years spent working so hard, can we still not escape this loop? After Han Sen confirmed his mother's safety, he decided to resume his journey to the Blue Crystal Shelter. Han Sen was riding Golden Growler through the Black Desert, and because of the region's vast size and barren wastes, he looked lonely and small in its midst. "I wish I did not have to eat or drink. At least I would feel better in this damn place if I did not have to." Han Sen had been on his traversal of the Black Desert for 6 days before realizing he was lost. A massive black sandstorm had kicked up 2 days prior, which was quite threatening. It did not harm Han Sen, but in his escape, he ended up losing all sense of direction. The silver fox didn't look comfortable under the sunlight. It still remained perched on Han Sen's shoulder, but it used its own tail as a shield or fluffy parasol to block the sunlight. It also yawned a lot. A shelter. Han Sen saw a really large building in the middle of the black sands he traversed, which made him open his eyes wide. Even if it wasn't a human shelter, and as long as it wasn't a super shelter, he could venture inside and obtain a new spirit. If he did that, he could teleport back to the Alliance and have a hot shower. He could rest, restock, and prepare himself once more. Han Sen hurried his Golden Growler, wanting to approach the place faster. He keenly observed the shelter as he drew closer and closer. It was fairly small, so he became certain that it wasn't a super shelter. But when he got closer, Han Sen began to feel a little disturbed. The shelter looked a little disheveled and rugged. It didn't look to be in total ruin, but it most certainly looked like an ancient city that had been abandoned a long time ago. This cannot be an abandoned shelter. Oh, please, God, let the teleporter still be functional, Han Sen prayed in his heart. As he got closer to the Yellowstone city, things were not as bad as they initially seemed. It was indeed a human shelter, and before the front gate, he noticed a giant parasol had been placed. Under the parasol was a sunbathing bench with a person lying on it. There was a beautiful woman lying there. She had nice long legs with short black hair. Her butt was firm and round like a peach, whose limelight was only stolen by her large boobies. Her waist was slim but solid, and you could espy a little muscle there. In the middle of this boring black desert, Han Sen's eyes almost fell out at how amazing this sight was. How could Han Sen see it so clearly? Because the short-haired lady was naked, sunbathing on the bench in a relaxed posture. Are my eyes playing tricks? Am I suffering a hallucination, having been in the Black Desert too long? Maybe it really is a mirage. Han Sen rubbed his eyes hard, wanting to confirm what he was seeing was actually true. The Yellowstone city was still there. The parasol and the sunbathing bench were still there, as was the beautiful lady. But Han Sen still did not believe it to be true. He put the Golden Growler back in the Sea of Soul and sped up his approach to the Yellowstone city. He ran there as fast as his legs could carry him. As Han Sen got closer and closer, the image of the place he had discovered became clearer and clearer. It really did seem like a real place that existed. No way. Is this for real? There is no way I'm this lucky. It doesn't make sense to have a pretty, naked woman sunbathing here in the desert. This must be a hallucination. It must be. Han Sen was now in front of the short-haired lady. He reached his hand out to grab the woman's bubble butt to confirm the validity of his vision, and was surprised to feel that her skin was smooth and bouncy to the touch. He could even feel the sunscreen that had been rubbed in. Maybe I was wrong. This does seem real. Han Sen thought it felt really good, so he squeezed her butt some more. A second later, however, the short-haired lady woke up. She turned her head in a sleepy fashion and said, "Little orange, don't do that. I'm trying to sunbathe here." When her eyesight came into focus and she saw Han Sen with a hand still firmly clasped on her buttock, she completely froze. They both locked gazes with each other for a few seconds before the woman snapped, which led to a scream echoing across the black desert. Her beautiful legs were like two lashing dragons, attempting to capture Han Sen like a pair of scissors. They looked ready to cut him down right then and there. Han Sen kept evading her capture and tried to plead with the woman, saying, "Lady, I have been wandering the black desert by myself for far too long. I thought I had encountered a mirage. I was only concerned with checking whether or not my eyes were playing tricks on me." Although he wasn't telling her the whole truth, he was never going to admit how he actually enjoyed playing with her butt. "I'm going to kill you." The woman did not care for his words and continued trying to attack Han Sen. "If you want to kill me, can you at least put on some clothes first?" Han Sen kept stepping backwards, talking to her. Things had gone a little haywire, and viewing her flailing naked body was getting a little awkward. The woman froze and screamed once more. The next second, the woman summoned armor to clothe her body. She gritted her teeth and resumed her attempts to attack Han Sen. "Lady, you must believe me. I am a soldier with ethics." Han Sen thought he had heard these words spoken somewhere before, and so he used them. The woman continued as if she were both deaf and mad, and her attempts to attack Han Sen did not slow down. "Lady, if you keep doing this, I will have to be rude. You won't be able to blame me for what happens next. It is daytime, and you are without clothes in public. Sunbathing or not, I am not the only person who would stop to admire you," Han Sen said. "Screw your public. Aside from you, what other perverts might be hiding around here, huh?" The lady spoke, amidst her frantic attempts to attack Han Sen. Han Sen just now noticed there was no one else in the city. Aside from the short-haired lady, the local vicinity was entirely dead. Even after using Dongshuan aura, he could not detect the presence of any other life forces in the area. "There's only you here in this city?" Han Sen asked the woman while dodging and blocking her attacks. The lady no longer answered him, and continued trying to attack Han Sen. Han Sen's principles were simple. If he was able to explain a predicament first, he would. If he couldn't, fight first and talk later. Han Sen then used one hand to grab the lady's leg and the other hand to grab her fist. Then he pulled and flipped her onto the ground. The lady used her other hand to try to fight back against Han Sen. He grabbed the fist and pulled her arm behind her back. Then, he pulled out the platinum chain on his waist and tied her legs and arms together. After that, he picked her up in one arm. "Asshole, let me go." The woman was very stubborn and was not keen to give up. She now tried to use her teeth to bite Han Sen, but from the way she was being held, she could not reach him despite her best attempts. "When you calm down, I'll let you go." Han Sen continued to hold the lady who had been tied up. He picked up one of her beverages and started to drink it. "Cool." Han Sen drank 3 of her beverages and belched loudly. "You are an asshole, obscene and cheap. Don't touch my beverages." The lady became even angrier as she watched Han Sen consume her drinks. Han Sen ignored her and carried her into the city. The city was desolate. The ruined remnants of old stone houses were all that was there. Dust and sand had caked much of the ruins, and it looked like no one had lived there for many years. There was no trace of occupation to be found. Han Sen proceeded towards the plaza. A small shelter like this did not contain teleporters in ordinary rooms, only public ones in either the plaza or spirit hall. But when Han Sen saw the teleporter, he was disappointed. The teleporter appeared to be damaged and inoperable. Han Sen walked deeper and deeper into the city, but found little more than lines of ruined houses, sand, and dust. The houses were only 2 stories tall, but there was a spirit hall. The spirit hall stood out amongst the rest, at 4 stories tall. "Don't go in. Leave this place." "Why?" Han Sen noticed she finally appeared to be willing to talk, so he lowered his head to ask her. "You can't go in there because you can't." "Stop. Don't go in. There is a scary spirit in there," the short-haired lady quickly shouted. Han Sen lifted his lips and told her, "But it's such a small shelter. This is a noble shelter at the most, so what manner of scary spirit can possibly reside here? Besides, if there is one, how have you managed to teleport in and out of this place? There really is a spirit in there, and I have never left this place," the short-haired woman stressed. "Don't tell me those beverages came with you on a journey here." Han Sen was not buying her story. When the short-haired lady heard that, she thought about Han Sen not only squeezing her butt, but also drinking the beverages she had held on to for so long. And the fact he drank 3 all at once. Angrily, she said, "Yes, that is right, you big horny asshole. Give me back my beverages." Han Sen still did not believe her. Still carrying the woman, he approached the door and pushed it open. Han Sen had already used his Dongshuan aura to take a peek inside, but couldn't detect anything. Therefore, he believed she was lying. Don't go. There really is a scary spirit in there, and you'll regret stepping inside. Let me go and die inside there all alone. Don't drag me down to hell with you. The moment Han Sen stepped into the spirit hall, his heart jumped. A scary force approached him like a black shadow or a toxic snake. Dong! Han Sen held his flaming Rex spike horizontally and blocked the shadow-like snake. He saw what appeared to be an arm-thick, black chain wrap itself around his Rex spike. On the other side of the black chain, a person appeared to be holding it, clad in broken armor. He was impaled on a black pillar, and the chain he wielded led through his body and into the stone behind him. The man looked pretty but cold, and he had long, narrow eyes. He had 2 fox ears in his long black hair. He coldly looked at Han Sen as his long fingers clasped the other end of the chain. The man yanked the chain, and a powerful force tugged Han Sen towards him. Han Sen was shocked, but he let go of the flaming Rex spike that had become entangled with the chain. Han Sen summoned his Snow Lady Beast soul and combined with it, returning the Rex spike as he did so. The man lashed his black chain, which had split into 1,000 smaller snakes that sought to latch onto Han Sen. If he didn't do something, he'd be covered in a legion of the slithering fiends. Oh no, I'm dead. Did you just want someone to die alongside you, so you didn't have to die alone? I have never had a boyfriend, and I have never had sex. I don't want to die yet. The short-haired lady was still under Han Sen's arm, and seeing the black chains, she almost started to cry. But then Han Sen moved his body. With the lady in hand, he managed to weave and evade every single chain lash. The attacker looked spooked, and so he lashed his chain again. The black chain that he wielded looked alive, and it turned into a toxic snake that tried to snap and bite Han Sen. Han Sen ran between the chains, and no matter how frightening the weapon was, it could not touch him. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. The short-haired lady felt like a passenger in a car driving at top speed along a cliffside. Any second, the car might tip and send her plummeting to the distant ground below. The short-haired lady's eyes were starting to water. Han Sen had the skills to dodge the attacks. However, if the short-haired lady had been left to her own devices, she'd have been snatched up by the chain in an instant. But still, being held by Han Sen and having her life put entirely within his hands was more terrifying than anything else imaginable. Han Sen's face was starting to look gloomy, though, and he was already pushing his Dongshuan Sutra to the max. All he could do was continue to dodge the man's chain, and no matter how much he tried, he couldn't find a window of opportunity sufficient for him to make an exit. This is a super spirit, that's for sure. But why has it been locked up in here like this? Han Sen pondered the peculiarity of Spirit's situation as he observed the hall in between his evasions of the attacks. There was no statue in the hall, just one black pillar. There were 2 black chains that were each as thick as an arm. They were wielded by the spirit, yes, but they were attached to the pillar through exposed wounds in the man's chest. The man had less than 1 meter leniency in movement, and the chain he used was one of the 2 that bound him to the pillar. Han Sen used Dongshuan aura but was unable to observe the man's energy. Han Sen tried escaping 6 times, but his withdrawal was prohibited each time by the chain. But still, the chain had yet to hit him, and Han Sen's continued evasion was fueled by his simulation of Light Son of God's energy flow through Dongshuan Sutra. After an hour of this, Han Sen finally managed to exit the hall. The spirit's full power was undoubtedly restricted by its binding. Why is that spirit chained up here? There is no statue or spirit stone here. It's pretty strange to say the least. Because he had no spirit stone, Han Sen had no particular interest in killing the spirit. Killing him did not provide Han Sen any benefit, and instead, it might only aid his attacker. If the spirit died, it would simply respawn at its own spirit stone, and it would not be trapped like it was now. You damn pervert, let me go. The short-haired lady, whose face was painted with dried-up tear marks, felt her waist begin to hurt. Sorry, I forgot all about you. The short-haired lady tried to stand up, but her waist was very sore. Her whole body was feeling numb, too. She stood up halfway, but then stumbled and fell back into Han Sen's arms. Han Sen helped her stand up straight, smiled, and said, "Lady, I know I am handsome, but please slow down. There is no need to literally throw yourself into my arms. I am not willing to date just anyone. It is important that we get to know each other first. You go to hell." The lady pushed Han Sen away and sat down on a stone stair, feeling somewhat crippled. She then began rubbing her sore waist. Han Sen wanted to flirt with the lady for a bit longer and perhaps come to learn of what might have happened here. But suddenly, he felt a scary presence dawn someplace outside the city walls. It was moving quickly. Han Sen seemed glum and looked out towards the city gate. He asked the short-haired woman, "Lady, aside from this spirit, do any other horrible creatures reside in the area?" The short-haired lady did not answer. Han Sen heard loud footsteps, however, and then he saw a creature that looked like a cat. It looked like a cat, but it was as large as an elephant. It had orange fur and was stomping towards them. Han Sen frowned. With the life force he could sense, he acknowledged it as a super creature. Little Orange, good timing. This big pervert has been trying to bully me, so get over here and kick his ass. The short-haired lady saw the super creature and suddenly looked overjoyed. She leapt onto the back of the cat and stroked its head. With a paw, it pointed towards Han Sen. The creature used its big round eyes to look at Han Sen, and then let out a fearsome cry. Meow. Watching an extra-large orange furball approach with haste, the silver fox that was still perched on Han Sen's shoulder moved before its master could. The silver fox's hair all stood up, and a charge of silver light began to form across its pelt. With a fierce discharge, a silver thunderbolt struck the super creature that the short-haired lady referred to as Little Orange. The shrill shriek of the cat and the sharp scream of pain from the lady that mounted it sounded at the same time. Although Little Orange was much larger than the silver fox, they were both juvenile super creatures. The cat looked like it had been born before the silver fox, but somehow it seemed to be in alliance with the short-haired lady. The short-haired lady was frozen while watching her cat get bullied. She was quite surprised earlier when Han Sen managed to escape from the spirit hall without suffering harm. But now she was even more surprised that the little pervert silver fox pet could challenge her own. And the way it attacked was more of a fun-making tease than anything. Birds of a feather flocked together. The short-haired lady shouted aloud, despite the fear that started to encroach upon her mind. When Zhou Yumei became an evolver and entered the second god's sanctuary, she never expected she would be sent to a dump like this. Not a single human populated the region, and when she first came here, she witnessed a creature battling a spirit. That was how she made it out of the spirit hall upon her arrival, and that was how she also became stranded, here in no man's land. Zhou Yumei was fortunate enough to meet Little Orange in the shelter. It did not treat her like an enemy, and it was really nice to her. The reason Zhou Yumei had managed to survive here was all down to Little Orange, as a matter of fact, who frequently went out to collect loot for her. The flesh of the creatures it brought her was of the sacred blood variety, which surprised Zhou Yumei a lot. After being together for a long time, the bond between Zhou Yumei and Little Orange had become a strong one. They hunted together often, and she was able to witness how easily Little Orange slew such creatures. But this powerful Little Orange of hers was now getting bullied under an oppressive little fox, and she was starting to grow a touch worried over its well-being. Zhou Yumei turned to look at Han Sen with her concerned expression, but she was surprised to see him already walking closer. He wore a smile, and a horny glint twinkled in his eye as he returned her a gaze. What do you want? I'm warning you, I am a powerful evolver. Keep your hands to yourself and do not attempt anything stupid. Zhou Yumei asserted a battle position as she gave Han Sen her warning. Her proclamations of strength were untrue, however, and the feigned tone of power she tried to force did not work. She lacked the intimidation she desired. After all, she had been easily restrained by Han Sen earlier, and now her greatest pillar of support, her pet Little Orange, was getting played with by the man's pet silver fox. Let me ask you a few questions first. If your answers satiate my curiosity, I will forget that orange furball ever tried to attack me. Otherwise, before Han Sen finished his sentence, he laughed twice with a menacing tone. Otherwise what? Zhou Yumei's heart was struck with a chill after seeing Han Sen laugh. Since there are only the two of us here, whatever transpires between us can only be kept like so. If I am in a good mood, I will you and then kill you. If I am in a bad mood, I will kill you and if my mood is ambivalent, then I'll just kill you while Han Sen bluffed. When Zhou Yumei heard him speak those words, her skin flared with goosebumps. She forced herself to present a cute smile and with a voice of pleading, she begged, "Oh, big brother, there is no need for you to do something like that. We are both humans, aren't we? And in this grand second god's sanctuary, we were fortunate to cross paths. Our encounter has to be one of fate. We should help each other, not antagonize each other. What is your name?" Han Sen gave Zhou Yumei a deep stare as he asked. "My name is Zhou Yumei. I hail from a poor family of minor prominence. I worked my hardest to become an evolver, and I cannot believe I ended up here in this place. Not a single other person exists here, and it seems like I cannot leave. I almost died here. Meeting you was a stroke of luck, indeed." Zhou Yumei looked very pitiable right now. Put away the acting talent. You are very young and powerful to have joined the second god's sanctuary. You must have maxed out your sacred geno points to become an evolver. And you are saying you hail from a poor family. Han Sen spoke with disdain. Zhou Yumei presented an awkward smile and said, well, I'm alright. I'm poorer than most rich people, but I suppose I'm a little wealthier than most poor people. Just be honest with me. Do you think I won't hesitate to strip you naked and throw you into the spirit hall? Han Sen gave her a grim face as he told her this. Okay, brother, I will tell you everything you wish to know. Zhou Yumei was spooked by Han Sen once again. Han Sen was then quickly educated on who she was and the relationship she shared with Little Orange. Zhou Yumei was quite something, and she was a councilman's child. Although there were many children in the Zhou family, not all possessed power. But being an evolver with maxed out sacred geno points at such a young age suggested she was quite powerful amongst the members of her family. Han Sen then learned all about Zhou Yumei and Little Orange's bond, which wasn't all too different from his with the silver fox. Such a thing was very rare, as creatures didn't often come to acknowledge humans as potential masters. Han Sen lay down on Zhou Yumei's bench. He drank another one of her beverages, and at the same time, asked her questions that piqued his widespread curiosity. Zhou Yumei's heart began to bleed when she witnessed Han Sen resume drinking her beverages. She had been saving them for half a year, but she had to concede and allow it and answer every question Han Sen posed. One can after another, Han Sen drank. He had been traversing the desert for quite some time, and he had grown tired of the repetitive taste of nutrient solutions. Having long fancied the taste of something else, he couldn't quite help himself from taking her drinks. He had drunk so much that her coveted trove of drinks had now been depleted, and only one remained. When his devilish hands reached out to grab it, Zhou Yumei reached a breaking point. She could no longer restrain herself, and so she lunged out to grab the can. She quickly opened it and gulped it down in one large swig. After she was done, it was as if it had instilled her with a renewed confidence. She chucked the can away, looked at Han Sen, and told him, do whatever you want to me, I would rather die with dignity. Han Sen took off the sunglasses he was wearing, which also belonged to Zhou Yumei, and looked at her face, which spoke of a willingness to accept death. Then he said, your dignity is equivalent to the worth of a soda can. Zhou Yumei's face went all red. She had been stuck in this place for the longest time, and the drink and snacks she had kept were a suspension and fortification of her hope. Now, that had been ruined by Han Sen, she took a few steps backward and asked, what are you doing? What, must I report my comings and goings to you or something? Han Sen smiled at Zhou Yumei. No, you aren't. What? Zhou Yumei's tongue tangled itself, tripping her words. She looked happy. If you really want to die, I can aid you in accomplishing this desire, Han Sen said. No, you commit to your own deeds. I can take care of that myself. Zhou Yumei was starting to talk nonsense. Han Sen ignored her, for she was just a young woman. He only wanted to tease her, not outright bully her. Pervert, horny bastard, asshole, animal, obscene, cheap, watching Han Sen enter the city and end up a good distance away from her. Zhou Yumei spoke as many profanities about him as she could. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.